Welcome to A Lunch with Biggie, a podcast about small business and creatives sharing their stories and inspiring you. My guest today loved pizza so much as a kid, he would call up and order delivery to his house without his family even knowing. Little did he know that this hardcore rocker would find his peace making pizza and having people slide into his DMs and show up at his house for pizza. Please welcome the pizza wizard and the creator of Black Magic Pizza, Travis Santos. What's going on, man? How you been?
Hey, man, I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me on the show. I was going to say, been listening for a long time and first time on the show, so I'm super excited to be here.
Yeah, man, I'm super excited as well. It's funny because you were brought up on my previous one of my previous episodes with Dalai Lama, and it just kind of made sense because I was like, I'm like, this is actually where we kind of first met and hung out more.
Yeah, no,
So,
I actually caught that episode. I was listening to you and Brent, and that was a really good episode. He's a cool guy. I remember first meeting him at Mr. Williams Tattoo on Mills 50. It was like Mills 50 area actually. My band, I would say I was probably like 16, 17 years old. My band was playing a show at Uncle Lou's right next door to where his tattoo shop used to be.
okay.
So, naturally we would all just flock over and see what's going on. And he just invited us inside. He was like, "You guys want to hang out here?" And we were like, "Absolutely." So it was a cool spot to hang out in between like sets and stuff.
No, that makes total sense. So let's go. First question, usually, what's your go-to sandwich?
All right, so I've actually had time to think about this one. I've got two different go-to sandwiches. First one is going to be a little bit on the sweeter side. I have to go with the fluffernutter just because I'm from Massachusetts, so it just kind of goes hand in hand. Peanut butter and fluff is just one of my favorite things. And then if we're going on the savory side, I have to go Beefy King beef and cheese.
Oh, okay.
100%.
I like it. There's some good classics there.
Oh yeah.
And I figured the fluffernutter would be brought up because your mom is a huge fluffernutter fan, so I totally get that.
That's definitely where I get it from. I remember countless mornings just eating that for breakfast.
Awesome, man. So let's talk a little bit about pizza. Why pizza?
So for me, I mean, pizza is just honestly fun. I fell in love with cooking at a very young age. I would say probably like 4 or 5 years old. I spent a lot of time in the kitchen with my grandmother. She was mainly doing all of the cooking, and I used to watch a lot of cooking shows, a lot of Food Network. Emeril Lagasse is one of my favorite chefs, so I watched a lot of Emeril live growing up as well. Um, my first job in food was actually pizza. I used to work in commercial, so I worked at Mellow Mushroom, and I was doing that for quite a while, and then eventually kind of just like went away from that, tried to get back into regular cooking, and then I kind of just fell back into it. And I don't know, pizza's just fun. At the end of the day, like it's one of the funnest things I've got to cook. So I just love it.
It's also a blank canvas, right? You pretty much can like add.
Exactly. You can take this little dough and turn it into whatever you'd like.
Yeah. No, it makes total sense. How did you come up with the name Black Magic Pizza?
So the name Black Magic Pizza actually came about because me and my girlfriend Elizabeth, she's actually number 2 in this whole operation. She can't be here right now, but we spent a lot of time going back and forth with different names, trying to lean towards it's kind of like punk rock kind of feel, and I think it was after a trip to Los Angeles. I was playing drums in this one project, and the artist was able to fly us out to Los Angeles for the show. And he took us out to eat, and he brought us to a bunch of different places. And the vibe in Los Angeles is so much more different than Orlando. We tend to focus more like on family here, and just making sure our image is cool. But in Los Angeles, all of these different concepts, like they don't care. There's so many different things going on. So like they're not afraid to be a little abrasive with their imaging and everything else. So when it came down to it, we were just like, we want to stand out, we want to be different, but we also don't want to like hurt people's feelings. So um, at first, it was actually 2 different names on the board. One of them was Death Wish Pizza, and the other one is Black Magic. So I'm really happy we went with Black Magic. It sounds a lot better. I don't think people want to eat at a place called Death Wish Pizza. Yeah. So
no, that would make sense. Yeah. And Elizabeth does a hell of a job on the graphics, on all the different design work. You guys, especially with your different menus, when you guys go to different places, she's always changing it up, which I love. And it does kind of have that little bit of like almost like a punk rock poster type of thing that you would get when you're going somewhere.
No, exactly. And like one of the first flyers she ever made was just on a piece of notebook paper and a Sharpie. But it just looked so cool that I was like, we can't ever stop this. Like this is the way that it has to be.
No, I love it.
And I kind of just like I gravitated toward that. And I was like, we're gonna take this, we're gonna go with it, and we're gonna make sure every single menu is different, so that people don't get confused on what's going on or where we're gonna be at. So That's really why we use that, like the imaging with it.
No, that's great. And I love how the thought process of it. Okay, so here's one of the things that I find to be very interesting on how this whole kind of thing started up. And I brought it up in the intro. So you originally, the way it all kind of started was, it was kind of like you had the idea to do pizza. You basically actually literally started posting it on Instagram, and it was literally people were sliding into DMs. You were like, I got this many pies. You had time slots. This is the menu. And you basically were like, slide into my DMs and secure a spot. And then people were literally, and I know because I was one of them, we would Venmo you money, and then you would make like 45, 60 pies.
Yeah.
And then, so tell me a little bit how that thought process came about to do it, to start out that way. And then also, how the heck did you get the word out to do that?
So honestly, it was just us just making pizzas like at my mom's house at the time. We were just using her backyard as like a really good area to take photos. And we would just take those photos and post them on our personal page, on our personal Instagram pages. And friends and different people who follow us would just reach out and be like, hey, this looks good. Like, where can I get this? Some people thought we were just at a restaurant, so they're like, hey, what restaurant are you at? So we kind of just took that information, and we were like, okay, so maybe somebody would actually want this. So
They did.
yeah, no, they really did. So just word of mouth, and also other people sharing the photos on Instagram really helped out. Once we had originally put up our time slots, I believe we originally started on a Monday, and we put up the time slots on a Monday for a pickup on Friday. And within about, I would say, an hour, we had every single time slot picked up. And I think there was like 12 or 15 different time slots from, I think we started at 2 p.m. and then we were done by like 6 or 7.
Yep.
But, just the circulation of things on social media is just crazy, like how fast things move around there. So, one person saw it, another person saw it, and then eventually they all started just DMing us onto our page. And that's kind of like how we got the idea for the first pre-order pickup kind of thing. And that was cool too, because it was literally just me and Elizabeth just, making pizzas in our apartment. It's kind of funny. We would cook them in the back area, like in our back patio, because our ovens are propane. Inside our small kitchen was actually an entire expo table, so we had boxes everywhere, cutters, different toppings like fresh basil, and then the master list with all the different orders. So like she would just hand me a ticket, and I would start on the next order. And then she would basically take, as soon as I was done with those pizzas, I'd bring them to her. She would take them, dress them up in their boxes, and then we had it timed out to where it would be like within 5 minutes, and that person would actually be there in our front parking lot, and we would just walk out the front door, hand them the pizza, say thank you very much, and then walk back inside and start over.
Yeah, and I always used to laugh because you guys had like she made a Black Magic pizza like banner on your front.
Yeah.
And you would drive in, and I would always, every time I would do it, when we would drive in, I would always look at the neighbors. Like the neighbors are all probably looking like, what the heck is going on here? And why are so many people flowing through? Because it was like probably like I think you had like 15-minute increments. So every like 15 minutes you had someone doing it. But I mean, I thought it was absolutely amazing that like you kind of were able to test the concept really in doing it this way in your own home. And people literally, they're like, oh, like, and that was one of the things, like I had your pizza before I even did it. So when I had it, I already knew it was good. So I didn't care where you were or how, but I was going to get it because I had brought some of the pizza home, and my wife and daughter ate it, and they're like, Black Magic, where are they at? Let's slide into the DMs and let's go. And so like, literally that's how it is. And like, whenever we have an opportunity, that's pretty much what we do. We end up like, we're going to get Black Magic pizza. I'm not going to lie. My wife and daughter are a little upset that we're recording, and they're like, are you going to get pizza? And I was like, no, we're no pizza. I'm like, trust me, we'll get pizza some other time.
We're taking the week off this week, but I promise we'll get you some pizza soon.
No, I won't. Don't worry about that. I'll get my pizza. So then based on that, how did that go from there to then? I know, ironically, I was at your very first ever pop-up at Barley and Vine when we, I think it was like October of 2019. Made in Orlando was an Instagram account. She kind of spearheaded the whole thing. She invited me, she invited you. There was a few other, like a bakery. There's like a few other little people there. It was a great little event, but it was also your first event.
Yeah.
So like, tell me a little bit about like how that kind of went, because you obviously then weren't cooking with like your, on your grill or whatever.
Yeah.
You had to like take the next steps. Tell me a little bit about like how you prepared yourself to get to that next step of being able to do your first pop-up.
So that event actually, our first pop up, that was probably one of the worst pop ups that we had ever done. Anything that could have went wrong did go wrong during that time, so it's kind of funny. The first thing that happened was I made a mistake when I was making my dough. I was really young in the process when I was doing all this, and like I wasn't paying attention, and I was off by 1 decimal, and it screwed up my recipe because I ended up putting about 5 or 10 times as much yeast as I normally would into my batch.
Okay.
So that immediately screwed up, and then we noticed probably at like 3, 4 in the morning that things were terrible. So I had to, take everything, throw it all away, start over, and it was just a big hassle. So, uh, you know, the dough, the dough at that event was bad. The weather, like it was October, but it was still really hot outside. We didn't have a tent. All we had was one table, one little metal table for me to work on, and then one plastic table for Elizabeth to kind of like sell the pizzas and expo everything. And we didn't even have a tent. We were just out there, just underneath a tree.
But I think that's this is the thing that I think that is great though, because you took it, one, as a learning experience.
Mm-hmm.
Two, you realize like you don't like when you first start, like I mean, I tell people all the time, like you can have champagne taste, but you can be on a total beer budget, and it could be a Natty Light PBR beer budget, right? Yeah. And it's okay. It's going to still be good. You could still have a great event, and it's all about learning and what you take from those. Because I mean, I'm assuming from this now to where you're at now, you're in a totally different environment because you've been doing it for a while, and it probably got easier as you progressed.
Yeah, no, I would definitely say that. Help from a lot of people along the way, especially yourself. You immediately from like the first event that we did, you kind of like took us in under your wing and was like giving us pointers on things that we needed and things that would help us out. And we've done a lot of events together, and it's really cool just to like see the progression. Like when you told us about the bed risers, that was one of the first things you told us was about bed risers. You're like, your back is going to kill you, and of course we didn't learn. I didn't learn. Probably took me 6 months to a year to get those bed risers, but now I won't do an event without them because my back is hurting. Now, and everybody else knows that too. Like, some other people in the pop-up game that I feel bad for them because they're always talking about how bad their back is hurting. And I'm like, man, you gotta get these bed risers. They're $5 from Walmart each. Just go in there and buy as many as you can. Or get a couple on Amazon.
So the concept of the bed riser, just so you know, and I learned this from my boy Kelly over at Brat's Beard Care, but he basically, I learned from him. I was like, because what happens is we're lazy. And we don't like to bend over to look at things, especially when you have product. And in his world, when you're constantly on a table, what you do is you grab bed risers and you put them on the bottom of your table. And then now your table now has risen up to like almost like a standing table. Yeah. So therefore you're not exerting as much. So it's not as painful.
Exactly.
So,
like I said, other people in the pop-up game have noticed it. And I've seen, other people kind of like, take that little tip and use it as well. Because it's just something you don't think about,
Yeah.
And there's a lot of factors that you don't think about. Like for us, it took us forever to get lights. We didn't think that we would be out there in the dark doing this. And then, what we learned when daylight savings comes around, we start all our events at 6 o'clock. 6 o'clock's already pitch black.
Yep.
So now it's like, oh shit, what do we do?
Yeah, no, and that's what it is, man. It's a learning game. I tell people, like, whenever you do an event, you either learn from it, what works, what doesn't work. What can you see from other people when you're walking around and learn from other people. There's definitely a community that wants to be able to help and share. I know that there was a food truck that I always thought was very interesting. She had a log on every event that she did, where she did it and when it was. So like when she did it, where it was, what the temperature was. And she basically did it to kind of get an idea. So that way, because she felt like history would repeat itself through the years, and then also be able to factor those things in. Like, hey, I did this event and it wasn't that good. I didn't do that well in this event.
Yeah.
Or I did that. So that's how she did it, which I thought was very interesting. I'm not that finite.
Yeah.
But, you tend to remember what works and what doesn't work and what can you do to improve on. So I definitely think that that's a good thing. I wanted to talk to you about your pizza. So your pizza is not, I would say is not, and and I'll let you describe it, but your pizza is not Neapolitan and it's not. So explain people what makes your pizza different.
All right. So, I use the term new Neapolitan.
Yep.
And that term can really go a lot of ways. So we use, New York style ingredients. So we use, a New York style flour that you would typically use in a New York style pizza. We use the same kind of cheeses that you would find in New York style pizza, and we just cook our pizza in a Neapolitan oven. So I always tell people that it's New York inspired, Neapolitan fired, to kind of um, just inform people of what style it is. Um, but it's just something that we've really just messed around with the recipe a lot to kind of get like this perfect blend of something that's like crispy and soft.
Mhm.
And we have to keep this recipe a little tuned. We have to tune it a certain way because of the ovens that we're using. Once we go into a brick and mortar shop, a lot of things are going to change. We want to make the size of the pizza actually bigger. So we'll actually take currently our pizzas are maxed out at about 11 inches. They're like pushing the box. So we'll go from the 11-inch pizza to the 16 to 18-inch pizza, so that it's more like the New York size. Um, but yeah, no, and one of the coolest things about this whole thing is like we're able to take any ingredients that we find, that are seasonal or anything, and we just use it to our advantage, and we like to create new things.
Yeah, and I know one of the things that you kind of I've heard you mention before, how you describe your pizza is like a little bit thinner in the middle, but as you go towards the crust, it gets a little bit thicker,
Yeah.
which is always a nice kind of mix. I also know that and I was kind of curious because I know I've heard you talk about how you hand mix the dough. So is there a reason why you hand mix the dough? Is it because of based on what you have available space wise rather than using like a traditional commercial mixer? Or is it more of a, hey, I just like it. I just think it adds a different flavor to it. What's the thought process?
So the hand mixing was always just, it was my way of just being involved with the dough, because most pizzerias, they just put their dough, or they put their flour, water, salt, and other ingredients into a bowl. They just hit mix and they walk away from it. I always felt like the dough is a living, breathing product, so you want to take care of it as much as you can. So that's why when it comes to the hand mixing, we always did the hand mixing in small batches to ensure that the quality, the product is up to the quality that we want it to be, and also it's just a way to keep an eye on things. I'm always paranoid that something's going to go wrong. So, when you do something for so long, hand mixing everything in these big batches, you can feel when something's off just by touch. And, and also been doing it, I've been hand mixing for so long that I can see when something is off,
Yeah.
I can adjust. So it's a little different. It takes a lot longer than mixing in a mixer and stuff, but I just really like to be hands on, and just be there with my product to make sure that it's up to our standard.
Yeah. No, I totally get that. And I totally appreciate that. I think that's something that is great to be able to see someone actually take that time to, and I get it. It's the same reason why some people ask me like, why do you fold your shirts and why do you do all these things yourself? And yeah, could I have someone else teach someone else? Yeah, but I don't have the money to do that. So I got to do it
Yeah,
myself. So, and I'd rather do it that way than just throw it in a little poly thing and whatever. I
yeah,
get it. It's that extra emotion. You take pride in your pizza. You have a passion
exactly.
for it and it shows when you eat it. So I totally get it.
Thank
What I wanted to kind of also talk a little bit about for you when you what like I guess in 2020 you decided you were going to then do this full time,
you.
right? Because of the pandemic, everything that kind of happened in the whole industry and everything like that. So I want you to kind of talk a little bit about what your thought process was and kind of what your like I guess how your thought process was like how am I going to make this a full time thing? Obviously you're popping up at different places. What's interesting to me, and I think is actually, and we'll talk a little bit about it, is that you're definitely part of a huge new trend here in Central Florida where you're not a food truck, but you're obviously able to cook. You have your ovens, but you're popping up. So it's basically you're showing up, you've got a tent, and you pop up, which definitely gives you quite a bit of mobility, probably more mobility than what a food truck would be. So I kind of want to talk a little bit about like some of your thought process, like what you said, hey, how can I do this full time? And then maybe like what's my game plan on how I'm going to make this my living and to be able to do this all the time.
Well, so when I first started taking things full time, it was really just because the restaurant that I was managing, I was a sous chef at, and I was kind of like leading their naturally 11 pizza department as well. Um, Kind of just it closed down. Pandemic hit hard, and a lot of restaurants were the first thing to kind of like shut down. It was restaurants and bars, and the restaurant that I worked at didn't really. We did to goes, but it wasn't our business wasn't centered around to goes, so it was really hard for us to adapt. You know, into that Uber Eats and DoorDash model, especially when their customers weren't even bothering. They really just wanted to come in and do like a dine-in experience. So um, I had to really shift. I didn't know what to do. It was like one day we all just got into work, and then the next thing you know, they put us all into the dining room. And they were like, "Hey, today's gonna be our last day of service. If you want to take anything, any food home, by all means, please do." And I was like, "Okay." So I just left. I didn't know what to do. I kind of got really upset because I put in a lot of time and effort into this position, and there wasn't really anything in the return for us. But at least I had this pizza. Our pizza project was already started by then, so I kind of had that to fall back on. I didn't know what to do, so that's really what kind of like started pushing us to make pizzas in the apartment, was just the fact that we were bored. And at the time, we didn't know where the world was going to go, and how things were going to operate, or we were just told that do we'll flatten the curve, and all this will be done in 2 weeks, and here we are almost 2 years later. So
Yeah.
uh but taking it full time, it was fun. And the reason it happened is because we just kept booking more and more things. We would book something on a Friday, something on a Saturday, and before you knew it, there wasn't really enough time to get back into the workplace. So that's kind of like why I'm still doing this full time. It's just so busy. And uh I have a lot of motivation now to kind of get this into a brick and mortar store, which is our next step. Uh, we've been doing this for, I would say, like close to about 2 years, a little over 2 years now.
Yeah.
So I owe it to all the people who have helped us along the way, and I definitely owe it to the customers because they keep asking. When the brick and mortar. I can't wait to bring people in here every single day. I can't wait to order my pizza every day. So
Yeah, and that's definitely a good thing. I mean, I think one of the things that helped quite a bit was, and I think you and I even talked about it when you guys were starting out, was like building that partnership of like, hey, go, bars and places that needed food that you can do it because of the fact that you can just show up and do that. And I think that's something that I think is so important to be able to figure out, how can I do this consistently and where can I do this consistently that helps. And the thing about you is that I find very impressive is that and I recommend to anyone if you eat Black Magic Pizza and you go to one of his events, one, show up early because there's always going to be a line and there's always going to be sold out. So like there are certain times when like if he's got a certain amount of time that he says he's going to be there, I'm telling you right now, if it's a 4 hour or 5 hour event, and by hour two, the line's already been done. There's already all the orders are already in. You're basically cross your fingers that you're probably may not get a pizza. And that's just the honest truth, just because of what I've experienced it, and I've hawked it when I've shown up and helped them unload the car just so I know that I was going to get pizza because the line is like super long, and I get it, and I mean, and I understand the concept, and I think it must be really impressive and make you guys feel so proud to know that people just love your pizza and are just basically almost kind of like how in rock bands groupies, they're basically following you to different bars and different places.
it's honestly crazy. I still to this day don't understand why people do this, and or like how they kind of like just make time in their Friday, Saturday afternoon to come and do this, because it's not like you can just walk up, get a pizza, and be in and out in 20 minutes. It's an event. We tell people, if we start at 6, I recommend getting there about 5:20, maybe 5:30 at the latest, but the line is going to be pretty deep by the time you get there. So
Yeah.
but no, it's just the support is just overwhelming. Like I to this day, I still we'll be setting up for an event, and I'm still like, man, maybe nobody will come, and then out of nowhere, there's a line of just 20, 30 people deep, and I'm like, all right, well, here we go.
What advice tips would you give someone that's approaching like establishments, like when you guys go and reach out to a bar or a place to be able to sell? I know probably a lot of them probably come to you now, but like when you guys were starting out, what advice would you give someone when they're coming out to to go see them and to introduce yourself and say, hey, I make this, I'd love to be able to sell here? Is there any advice or any things that have been helpful for you that you can maybe share with someone?
Yeah, man. I would definitely say don't be afraid to take risks. That was one of the biggest things that I was afraid of in life is taking risks, and the fear of failure, the fear of people saying no. That's probably one of the biggest things that always like steered me away from kind of doing this. But you know, as I've been doing it for so long, I just kind of just got used to the feeling of some people are gonna say no. Some people don't want you to come and mess around with their business, which is totally fine. That's why we kind of partner up with bars and breweries. We're working with some restaurants to kind of do some cool collabs and stuff. But I always I always I never want to step on anybody's toes, and that's probably one of the biggest things that really held me back at first was just being afraid. But you'll get over that, especially if you just ask. Like, there's no harm in that, and especially if you go to these establishments and you talk to the owners and you kind of let them know what you're doing and you bring them a product or you show them what you can do. You
Yeah,
know,
I definitely think it helps to be able to bring it. If you're gonna say, "Hey, I make pizzas.
yeah,
Here's a pizza. Try my pizza.
yeah,
Try my pepperoni."
yeah,
And
exactly.
and then all of a sudden they're like, "Oh crap, this is delicious. I think my patrons are gonna want this." And that helps for them, especially when it comes to like a brewery or something like that. Because what's the hardest thing is like a lot of people get hungry and then they leave and then they don't come back,
Mhm.
which is always kind of the hard part. So I definitely think that's definitely something that helps is to be able to do that. Definitely take the chance to have that conversation, build those relationships. You just never know.
Yeah, and also, like, don't be afraid to ask for help. Like, that's another thing that kind of like held me back at first was like I was always afraid of asking for help. I always thought it was like a sign of weakness, but you don't know until you ask, and that's just how it is. Like, I've there's so many people that I just ask random questions to, like, hey, like, how much are you paying for this, or like, where do you get this product at, Yeah, and those are things that like I always felt where you don't ask those kind of questions, kind of thing, because that's somebody's business, but we're all in this together, and everybody's in this business to kind of help each other, and
Yeah.
that's what's really cool about this whole this small little pop up scene is that we are a small little scene here in Orlando, but we have a lot of love for each other, so
Yeah. No, and obviously, yeah, you're always going to find someone that's not going to want to share things with you. But whatever, that's you don't need those people.
yeah,
You just go to someone else. Someone else will help you out.
yeah.
So it's talking about shooting your shot. One of the things that I saw recently come up, and it was like probably during around Christmas time, I saw that you were on. It was Dave Portnoy's of Barstool,
Oh, hell yeah.
where he does his Barstool pizza review, like his one bite type thing that he does. I know who he is, and I followed it, and I was like very shocked when I saw you guys on it. So tell me a little bit about how that happened, and how you kind of slid into DMs probably and made it and made that happen for you.
So yeah, Dave Portnoy, the Barstool president, does the Barstool Pizza reviews, got the Barstool sports betting and all the other outlets and stuff. Uh, huge in the pizza community for his own reasons, which is kind of funny. He's not really he doesn't have a pizza background, but he's just a guy who likes to eat pizza, so he can give his review on it. Um, that whole thing was just crazy because I saw he was in town. I saw he had done a review at another spot here in Orlando, so I immediately jumped the gun because I had at the time when I first saw that he was in Orlando, I had a van filled with all of my pizza stuff. I had dough, I had sauce, I had cheese, I had all my tables, all my ovens ready to go. So I basically hit him up the day before Christmas Eve. Uh, when I saw that he was first in town, I was like, "Hey," I sent him a little DM on Instagram and sent him a couple pictures of the setup. And I said, we're Black Magic Pizza. We're a little bit different than your average pizzeria, considering that we're a pop up. We partner with different bars and breweries, and we kind of bring the pizza experience to you. So I shot him a DM. I would say 7:30, maybe 8 p.m. And I get home, I start to unwind. It's maybe midnight, and then that's when I actually see that he replied on Instagram. And I hadn't told my girlfriend Elizabeth about this at the time. I just started shaking. I was like, I didn't know what to do. So my hands started shaking, my legs started shaking. She's like, "Are you okay?" And I just handed her my phone. I was like, I don't know what to say. And then she's like, "What is wrong with you?" She was like, "You were gonna be mad if he never replied to you." And I was like, I don't know about that, but we have this opportunity. So he basically said, you know, I don't know what your availability is, but the following day, that being Christmas Eve, he's like, I got this window from like 5 to 6 p.m. So I basically shot back and I was like, whenever you want us there, just shoot me a time and address, I'll be there. And then the next day, Christmas Eve, he gave us an address. So we go out there. It was in Windermere. Uh, it was in this crazy like townhome uh, development, and he just gives us an address. I go up to the door. I knock on the door, and I'm like, "Is Dave Portnoy here?" Super funny. And I felt like a crazy person just knocking on some random people's door. And they were actually Dave's girlfriend's family.
Yep.
So they were aware that he was in town, like he was staying with them. Uh, and he also had told them that we were going to be doing the pizza review. So they had a family member kind of come outside and just show us like where to set up and stuff. So they had this little like plot of land that was just kind of like in this little dead end area, but it was perfect for the review. So we set up the tent, we set up the table, the ovens, and then just basically waited for him to get there. He was out like at Disney or something with his girlfriend, just hanging out for the holidays. And once they came by, super genuine guy, so down to earth, like gave me a big like handshake and hug as soon as we first met. And then, thanked us for being out there, thanked us for coming out on Christmas Eve and doing the review with him, which is completely surreal because like I thought I was gonna be thanking him. I was like, thanks for the opportunity. Thanks for what you do for the community, and thanks for how you help all these businesses with your Barstool Pizza Fund as well. So he kind of flipped the script, thanked us for coming out there, and we did the review, and then he wished us good luck, gave us another handshake and hug, and then we went on our way. Then after that, like I immediately went from the review, and then we went to my family's house and we did Christmas Eve dinner.
Okay.
So it was like it was crazy. Because the day before that, like we had a private catering, so it was a little bit of a busy holiday season for us, but like everything just kept coming right after another.
Yeah. And one of the things that I think is I think it's a great opportunity. I think that one of those things where I kind of, and I know I've seen some pizza folks get upset about like the review, and he's may have certain thought process on what he thinks of certain pizzas, like Neapolitan pizzas automatically get like a certain rate. And it is what it is. I thought about it when I heard it because I wasn't a fan. Let's just put it this way. I wasn't a fan of the review. But at the same time, I'm like, well, if I were to do a sandwich review, I'd have to come up with some baseline type thing. So I get it. Yeah. So I get it. But at the same time, I also look at it as any review, especially when it's someone like that's well known, is more popularity and more eyes on you, which is like what you want. And you want that opportunity. And I'll be one to tell you right off the bat, never, ever miss out on the opportunity to DM someone and reach out to them about your product or something. As long as you're a fan and you're genuine and you're not just pawning off what it is, it does work very well. I've done it. I have a lot of celebrity chefs and people from Food Network that have worn and rock some Deli Fresh threads. And I definitely, a lot of it is because I've built a relationship with them. And I basically, in my world, most of it was because I built relationship, communicating, never not being the one to go out to them. In your case, it made sense. They were here. You needed to jump on that opportunity. In a lot of my cases, I just build a relationship, follow, interact, build that relationship. And then you shoot your shot when they finally start replying back to you. You kind of be like, hey, this is who I am. What do you think? Would you want some? You like sandwiches? I got sandwich shirts, and you kind of work it that way. So I totally, but I was super happy and super excited for you on that. I'm also super excited because I've seen that you guys have actually done catering, not even in Florida. You've actually gone and traveled to do catering, which I think says a lot when people are actually asking you to go travel a distance to actually provide food for them.
That's actually really cool. Like, that was something that was, brought to us, I would say in November. We had the opportunity to go out there to Asheville, North Carolina and cater a wedding for a couple friends. So they had a lot of family basically all over the U.S. and then they basically all agreed on Asheville as like a meeting point. So we had people from Florida drive up. Basically, there was people who came from New York who flew in. There's people who came from like Denver, California. So it's just really cool to see like all these people come together and like they also had it on this I guess you would say it was like this it was like a 3 or 4 separate properties on this big like reserve up there in the mountains. But they had 4, like I said, 3 or 4 separate log cabins. So they actually got to invite all their guests to this like property, and then they actually got to all stay there for the weekend. So it was really cool. Like I think everybody got there on Thursday, and then they were all out of there by like Monday. But like it was basically the whole wedding got to stay together like on this like compound area. So that was cool. And then it was really cool just to see like because a lot of the people that we knew in the wedding were from Florida and some other people from out of state. So it's really cool just to be involved with that as well. Like being able to cook for our friends and being able to reconnect with some of the friends that we haven't seen in quite a while as well.
Not to mention different people getting to try your pizza from all around the country.
100%. That's also another thing. Like just being out there for a wedding, you got people from all over the place coming in, and they love the food. We were out there. we started a dinner service maybe at like 7 p.m. and like we were done by 9, but we went through close to 100 pizzas just, and that was with 60 guests.
Wow.
So
That's pretty good.
yeah, no,
That's
everybody
pretty
was
good.
definitely fed, and I remember we made a lot of pizzas basically in boxes for to go, and people just kept taking them left and right. So
No, that's awesome, man. That's awesome. What advice would you give someone that wants to start something?
go for it. Don't be afraid. Just do it. I mean, what's the worst that can happen? You know, especially if you're young. Like that's one thing that me and Elizabeth have always held on to is like we're young, we have experience, we can always go back to our day jobs.
Yeah.
You know, uh, don't be afraid of taking that step, and don't be afraid of asking for help. That was one thing that we didn't do at first. We didn't ask for help, or we always saw you know we saw it as like a sign of weakness.
Mhm.
But you don't know until you ask, and there's a lot of things that you don't know. So don't be afraid to ask for help for people. Don't be afraid to reach out, especially like to the people you look up to. That was something that I've been doing recently, and it kind of worked out, like with the Dave Portnoy interview. Don't be afraid to push your product on the people that you look up to.
Yeah.
uh what else? I forgot.
That's okay. That's okay. Those are pretty good things to share. So I've been asked this question before, and I kind of like it. I was asked someone asked me, he's like, how much do you think luck plays into success?
I think it's like a 50-50 thing. You kind of have to put in that work in the beginning, in order to get lucky. Because that opportunity, when it comes knocking on your door, you have to go with it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that I didn't want to do, but we've done it, and it's opened up the door for other things to come, and it's made things a lot better along the way.
When you say there were other things you wanted to do that you didn't want to do, was it because it would be difficult, or because you don't have to give me details, but I'm just kind of curious. Is it like, because like I know in my world sometimes I've stunted my own growth because I've been kind of like, oh, I don't want to do that because of, I don't know, I just didn't want to do these certain things. But then as time went on, you kind of evolved and you're like, well, you know what? I'm okay doing this, or this is a good time to do this. So was it something like that where it was like kind of like in time you've kind of changed your perspective from where you were originally, or is that usually kind of how it goes?
Yeah, I used to just look at things from the outside and be like, that's too hard, that's too difficult, that task is too daunting. But, after, doing things on our own for so long, I kind of I look at things as a challenge now, and I get excited. Like, for the whole Asheville trip, that was something that we had maybe 6 months to kind of prepare for. And we did all of the, I kind of dropped the ball on that one. I kind of just didn't, didn't prepare the right way, and we ended up having to change our entire plan probably 2 days before we actually left Asheville. So originally we were going to make all the dough and make all the products like in Asheville. And once we started thinking about that, we were like, they're gonna have all these people in this log cabin. There's not really a dedicated prep space for us. They have a kitchen there for caterers at the wedding venue, but it wasn't really outfitted for the things that we needed. So we kind of had to shift and adjust, and that meant we made the dough here in Orlando. We made it at our commissary kitchen, and then we put it into a refrigerator. But then when it came to transport, we weren't sure how we were gonna take all this pizza dough and drive it 10, 12 hours up to North Carolina. So we got these giant 152 quart igloo coolers. We got two of them, and we stacked them basically on top of each other. And we got these smaller dough trays, and we were able to fit all of our dough in these coolers. But then we lined dry ice and regular ice in between the dough trays.
Yeah.
So basically, what it did was it flash froze our dough, and it made it to where we could go, drive all the way from Orlando to North Carolina, and then we actually had to wait for people to get to the place as well. So the dough sat in my car for probably like 14 hours, but it was solid as a puck. And that was something we had never done before, and I was like, oh no, I screwed up. Like this whole thing is screwed, you know. But we let it kind of like thaw out in the fridge for 2 days before the event, and honestly, the dough came out just as good as if it was fresh, and
Yeah.
if it just made it right there. So that was something that we actually kind of learned.
Yeah.
But we learned a new process along the lines of this difficult task. We actually found ways to make things easier for next time. So now we know,
Cool.
okay, we can do this. I could take this dough and, I could drive 24 hours someplace
Yeah.
with this dough at frozen and then put it into the refrigerator as soon as we get there.
Or heck, I mean, even the fact that you can actually, not that you would want to, but when you get to the point and you do have a brick and mortar, you're going to need to figure out new ways to make pizza and have all that stuff ready to go and all that dough to go. I know that when I talked to the guys, when I talked to Steve from Gideon's, I mean, they're granted it's cookie dough, but they freeze their dough and that's part of their process, and they're okay, and that's part of their process. So it's kind of interesting, kind of how you get to learn type of things like that. No, that's awesome, man. Where can people follow you, and most importantly, buy your pizza?
All right, so you can follow us on our social media accounts. Facebook, Instagram is going to be Black Magic Pizza, and then you can also reach out to us and kind of follow us on our website as well, which is just blackmagicpizza.com. We've got a ton of events coming up for 2022, and we've got some cool collabs that are like under wraps, and we're working with some other like local restaurants to kind of do some things in their locations as well.
So definitely worth a follow then.
Yeah,
for sure, right?
I was gonna say keep an eye out. We got some cool stuff going on this year, and we're also still looking for a brick and mortar space. So that's our main goal is to find a home for us so we can be able to serve every single day.
Have you, out of curiosity, in your conversations when you're saying like talking to people and learning from folks, have you talked to restaurant people who own restaurants? Because obviously that is a huge it's almost like I've heard different things from different people, like when it goes from people who have food trucks and going from food trucks to restaurant. And then I've also heard, just the transition of going from kind of being a constant location that's always open all the time. Have you talked to anyone about those transitions?
So yeah, we've reached out to a couple different restaurant owners to kind of pick their brain and get some insight, and that's helped out a lot.
Yeah.
It's taught us that we need to be patient. Timing is everything, that's for sure, and that the opportunities will come because if one business doesn't really succeed, then it kind of gives you an opportunity to pick up where they left off in some cases. So that's kind of like what we're waiting for. We're just waiting for the right space to open up. But we reached out. Sorry.
So I'm going to bring up a topic that I saw that I heard from somewhere when I was like listening to some stuff. You had mentioned, which I thought was very interesting. It piqued my interest. You said something like a micro pizzeria would be like because you're like, I don't care where I make pizza. I can do it in a closet or whatever if I have to. But it just kind of piqued my interest. Have you, like you mentioned micro pizzeria. So I'm just trying to figure out, I'm just kind of curious, in your dream scenario, if you were to do like let's say a micro pizzeria, what would that exactly be? And what's your concept? What would your concept be if you were to do something like that?
All right. So ideally, I mean, if we could put this micro pizzeria anywhere, I would put it in like Colonial Town area. I just like the historic side about it. I like how it's kind of like centered in between Orlando, all of the other kind of like nighttime districts, and it's got a good amount of traffic that goes through it, and just the area is just really nice as well. But ideally, I mean, like the idea that the micro pizzeria came up when we from the pop-ups. We're basically running out of 100 square feet right there, and if we could double, triple that, get into a space that's maybe like 400, 500 square feet, we could still make it work. We have enough room for all of our ovens, we have enough room for our employees, all of our dough, and all of our product and stuff. So that's where that idea really came from, because I was like, we can, if we're doing these kind of numbers in this little 100 square foot tent, imagine what we could do if we had 900 square feet, which really isn't that much for a restaurant.
Yeah. No, I think that's awesome. And I think that's great. I think that's an interesting concept to be able to go with. And who knows? I mean, maybe that's what will end up happening, is something like that. And, we'll see. I'm looking forward to it. I know, obviously, I will be there for any pre-openings and grand openings, to be eating your pizza for sure. So,
hell yeah. Thank you, man.
For sure, man. For sure. Well, that's our show for today. Thank you so much to Travis Santos from Black Magic Pizza for having lunch with me today. If you're in Central Florida, definitely make sure to check out Black Magic Pizza. Definitely go in, and like I told you, get there early. If not, you're just going to be smelling everyone else's pizza and you're going to be upset. And maybe buy an extra one, because I do that sometimes. We have 3 in our family. I buy 4 pies, and then so that way we each get our own pie, and then we have another pie that we can go and enjoy. So definitely do that. If you enjoyed the show, definitely make sure to subscribe. Join. We now have a Facebook group, so join that, Lunch with Biggie podcast. Definitely enjoy that. If you want to support me, check out my brand, Deli Fresh Threads. We're doing a 9 years now. So definitely
Congratulations on that, by the way.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate that.
That's huge.
Thanks. Yeah, it is huge. And I try to remember and try to celebrate the accomplishments. Sometimes you tend to forget it, but 9 years is going to be big. I have a lot of things planned. So definitely, if you're not, follow me, do some shopping. I definitely appreciate it. Share with your friends, but thank you so much. Keep eating sandwiches, and most of all, follow your passion. Thanks, guys.